be out of Volume 6 and Book 4 and ready to start Book 5 and Volume 7 of Heaven Official's Blessing! It's Romania Black, and I'm not gonna lie, I woke up this morning and I was like, I really want to read the new Manhua chapter 98, and I really want to start Volume 7. Because I'm so, look how glossy it is. I'm so excited to be out of Volume 6, to be out of Book 4. Troubling times, harsh times. But you know what? I mean, it's MXTX. There is still plenty of room and 2 volumes worth of angst that I'm sure are left to go. But I am ready for maybe happier times. But I don't know if that's going to happen because we're still on Mount Tonglu. Bai WuXiang still is around and has Xie Lian seemingly cornered. And even though we are out of this book and out of the worst, probably, there's still lots of angst that could still happen. And so I'm not like celebrating like, oh, there's going to be no more pain and suffering. But I think the worst is hopefully behind us. Or at least the end of Book 4 gave us that impression that it's like, all this devastation happened, all of this sorrow, all of this heartbreak, and I'm not saying Xie Lian's out of the woods, which we'll talk about this with the Manhua chapter, but things are not going to be hopefully as terrible as they were, because the last several chapters were pretty rough. And I was wearing red for most of those chapters, not only to show solidarity towards Hua Cheng and Xie Lian's passion and perseverance, but also because I was watching another series where I needed to wear red. But today I was like, I'm wearing white. I'm wearing white to mourn the death of Book 4, but also to show solidarity towards Xie Lian, who, and now it is so weird to think that he wears white, which is, you know, on one hand, it's kind of a callback to Bai WuXiang, and like, it feels like Xie Lian takes that with him. He takes all of the things with him, whether he realizes it or not. He's wearing white, like when he was starting to imitate Bai WuXiang. He's wearing white without realizing that. He has Ru Yi with him. He carries the bamboo hat with him. He has the cursed shackles with him. He also, you know, was busking at the end of the last chapter. He was talking about breaking boulders on his chest to kind of take the street performer with him in a way. It's sort of like he just carries his little in memoriams with him as he goes. But Xie Lian also doesn't realize that he's doing it. So it's interesting, right? Which you can't blame Xie Lian for wanting to push all of that to the recesses of his memory, because who would want to remember that at all, much less more than once. So I'm excited to get into Volume 7. I've not read the back cover. I've only looked at the front and the little insert that has Xie Lian and Hua Cheng in the Ghost City. Anime Annie and Reiki have done a great job this entire volume set of giving me the chapter contents. There's actually going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks of Volume 7. So yay, I'm really excited. We'll be reading this until Christmas. And then we'll start Volume 8 on Christmas Day, actually, which is crazy, right? So we have this through now up until Christmas. So I'm excited to have Volume 7 for at least one more week than Volume 6, even though it's shorter. So, but as we've learned from Volume 6, just because it's quality over quantity, so just because there's less pages in this volume does not mean that the contents are going to be any crazier. But honestly, I have no clue what to expect out of this volume, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I want to go ahead and talk about the Manhua and a couple comments that I have before we dive in. The comments that I have, just to go ahead and get them out of the way, Anime Annie was talking about how the physical damage caused in these chapters doesn't seem to leave any scars on Xie Lian. So that part fascinated me to no end, because, you know, in Modao Zushi, there are characters that get scars, and those scars in Modao Zushi serve as reminders. They serve of, you know, kind of like, they serve as a means of endearment. They show the trials and torture that someone has gone through for the sake of another. They serve as memory, as reminders. They just have a very important part in Modao Zushi. The scars that people carry are a very big part of that story. And for Xie Lian to have no scars after everything they've gone through, one, I mean, it makes it easier for Xie Lian to forget, because he doesn't have that reminder constantly. So it's easier for him to push things to the back of his memory. But the sad part is, one, he doesn't have it as, I mean, people view scars a lot of times as a negative connotation, but for Xie Lian, he doesn't have that reminder of what he went through and to show where he's at now, which you can view as a positive or negative. But the negative of it is that people don't understand what Xie Lian has gone through. When you look at a character like Modazushi who is covered in scars, you see the anguish and trauma they've gone through, and you go, oh, like in so many narratives, there's other series I've watched where characters, like, they pull off their shirt, they show off the scars, and they're like, oh man, that person's been through a lot. Or, oh, I thought I understood this person, but now seeing all these scars, I realize I don't understand that person at all. You know, it's used oftentimes as a narrative device, but MXTX kind of does this in a clever way where there is no narrative device. You don't know Xie Lian. Xie Lian is kind of a blank slate, and it kind of goes along with the idea of him being a god, of him being like this perfect being. You don't see all the trauma and horror that he's gone through, and so it's harder to convince people of that trauma, right? So that's very fascinating. I was like, oh yeah, the only one who really knows everything Xie Lian has gone through is Hua Cheng. I mean, Feng and WuXiang and Qirong have probably heard things and seen some things, but they've not witnessed everything Hua Cheng has. And that's pretty important. So I thought that was really good to point out, Anime Annie. And then Kix K talked about that there are parallels between Zhao Ying and Long Ying, the adult version, which makes the young child version all the more crazy, right? I was looking at those parallels and the idea of how they died, and seemingly that, like, Zhao Ying died for seemingly no reason, and then you have Long Ying, who Xie Lian had an agenda to kill, and he died without him being able to fulfill his mission. So there's parallels there. And then they had a theory that they're like, what if the mural that Feng Xin and WuXiang saw, that they were like, oh no, Xie Lian, you can't look at it. What if that mural was not of Xie Lian and Hua Cheng in like an intimate setting, like Land of the Tinder, but what if it was of Xie Lian being stabbed with all the swords? Now, and they didn't want him to see that. Now, I'm kind of torn between that, because on the one hand, I think I was like, would Hua Cheng actually paint that scene and relive that trauma? I don't know if he would or not, because that seems like one of the worst times of his life. He even admits that at the Truth or Dare. But I could see maybe him doing it as motivation, where he's like, my Gege was so assaulted and traumatized and mutilated that, yes, this is going to motivate me to become a Supreme Ghost and avenge him. I could see maybe it used for that, but I feel like the way that WuXiang and Feng Xin reacted, I disagree a little bit with Kix K. I think the way they reacted was more along the lines, it matches up with, they're like, oh, he's going to do these perverse things to you. It matches more along with that mindset than if they saw like a painting of Xie Lian mutilated, they'd have been like, oh, this guy is a psychopath. And like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the headcanon theory, but I think it's interesting. I think that if that were the case, I'd be fine with it. But I still think it's the Land of the Tinder, and that Hua Cheng's like, oh my god, I didn't want you to see that. But I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe. But I think that's interesting. I'm like, I like that headcanon a lot, though. So it's a cool headcanon. I think it's fascinating. But yeah, so we're going to talk the Manhua real quick. Manhua chapter 98. Oh, Qirong. I'm getting so giddy and excited because next week, after this week, next week, Heaven Official Blessing Season 2 will start on this channel. And so I feel like after Volume 6 and Book 4, we need this second season where the Manhwa's going over this. We need this. We deserve it. We've suffered enough. But I think it's fascinating that I'm reading the Manhwa, which is going to coincide with the second season of the Donghua. I think that's fascinating. And it has me very excited to see Qirong. Definitely. I think we'll get Qirong in Season 2 of the Donghua. I think we will. I'm so excited to see him animated. I cannot wait. Qirong's one of my favorite characters in this story. Not because they're a great character, but it's like their trash kingness is so endearing that I'm like, yes. Compared to Bai WuXiang, Qirong is a lamb. Like, give me all the Qirong. But I love the way that Star Ember draws them. They just have like the eyes kind of are slitted like Hua Cheng's, but they're green instead of red. And he kind of has a Xie Lian like feature, but his hair is more floofy. And he's just such a trash king. It's great. But the way that they draw this scene, I like that all of the stuff from the Gilded Banquet and Lan Chanchu, they're in like reds and robust oranges and golds. Like the tones are all like muted and sepia. It helps with the flashback vibe of it. And then Hua Cheng or Qirong is all just like greens, right? But I love the way they draw the descendant Anla, that he looks a little bit like Xie Lian. Just a wee bit, right? And then I love seeing Xie Lian as the Goshi again, wearing another mask, hiding his face, hiding his true thoughts. We see the lower part of his face this time, but we don't see the upper part with the mask, right? We don't see that. And we see the idea of him in like it's weird to see Xie Lian in anything but all white. It's weird. I mean, I'm used to seeing him as the princely figure with like all the pastels and everything, but seeing him in like drab grays and blacks, seeing him in black is weird. Seeing Xie Lian dressed in black is it's a very odd feeling. It doesn't seem to match him at all, right? And even his hair looks a little bit different. But I love the idea of the sword reflecting the Goshi, the sword of Anla reflecting this Goshi in it. It's neat. And then poor Lan Chanchu. Lan Chanchu. I'm just like, after reading book 4 and volume 6, I'm like, oh, you lamb, you summer child, stop. I'm like, you have no idea what Xie Lian's gone through. And again, that ties back to how could he know? But him just showing up and Qirong painting the picture of how he thinks everything went down. Now, what I wanted to mention was the coffin. The way that Star Ember draws the coffin, it's like this huge, giant coffin that like 20 people are under. It's enormous. And he's just trapped inside of it. There's like chains all around it and swords. It seems very hard to get out of. So I am very curious as a reader. I don't know at this point where we're going to start at with this. I don't know if we're going to start right back with Bai WuXiang and Xie Lian in the present. I don't know if we're going to expand, like I said last week, on the 500 years after he descended a second time and in between that dissension and the Gilded Banquet. I don't know if we're going to go over that. I don't know if we're going to touch base on the coffin. That'd be nice. I feel like the coffin scene is the one aspect of the story they're going to go back to and give us more information about, because there's a period of 100 years between the Gilded Banquet and Banyu. I'm like, was Xie Lian trapped in that coffin for 100 years, just sitting there? Did Hua Cheng find his way in to help him? I don't know. I feel like we're at least going to go back to that because MXTX loves a coffin story. Loves to bring up coffins in this series and mausoleums and everything, right? So I feel like we're going to go back to that. But I thought that seeing the scale of it here made me go, oh, there wasn't just a rinky-dink coffin. It was pretty robust, and they were very much like celebrating the death of Xie Lian, which is, again, after books 4, volume 7, or volume 6, it's something, right? And I just love, Qirong just gets under Lan Chanchu's skin. And I know people ship them. I don't understand why, but maybe at the end of the story I will. Don't spoil me. But maybe it's just because Lan Chanchu is like an oblivious himbo and Qirong is just a passive-aggressive trash king, and that's just the combination you want. But I don't want any spoilers or hints or clues or being like, oh, later on they'll battle again. Don't tell me that. I don't want to know. I want to find out and be surprised. But I just... Lan Chanchu, you are a himbo and sweetheart. I just don't know. I just like that Qirong is so easily able to get under his skin. And Star Ember is having the time of their life drawing Qirong. Like, you can just tell, like, just the way that Qirong, like, sits himself up, poses himself, acts all arrogant. It's great. And I just feel for Xie Lian's expression here, because Xie Lian's like, things are more complicated than you're making them out to be, but I don't want to talk about it because it's, you know, Xie Lian again trying to help people and things go awry, and he's like, oh, God, I can't do anything right? And Star Ember, let me pull up this other one. I love Star Ember's drawing here of Qirong, where he's like clapping for Lan Chanchu getting it, being like, now that wasn't too hard, was it? I love that. But I also love that there's literally blood on Qirong's hands as he's clapping. He literally has blood on his hands as he's clapping and applauding Lan Chanchu for believing his half-truths. It's just really great panel, and Star Ember showing off that they can draw hands really well. I feel like anytime an artist can draw hands, they're like, let me show you, and I'm like, curse you, because they are really hard to draw. But yeah, and Xirong's, I can just sing his praises of him with the little like squinty eyes where he's like, hee, where he's just tee-heeing. He's like the only character that tee-hees in Star Ember's artwork so far, and I really like it, but he's just like covered in blood, like all over his face from eating people. It's glorious in the most schlocky way possible. And then of course, you know, Xirong seems kind of earnest because of how blatant, and Xirong is not bland, but how blatant they are. And poor Xie Lian's like, well, now don't listen. And then Lan Shanchu is like, just has this big come apart. I like that Hua Cheng sits in the background throughout all of this and is just like, can I turn him into a Daruma doll now? Can we turn him back into a Daruma doll, please? I feel like Hua Cheng's like, oh God, every time. He's like, you know, he's the boyfriend that's like, just leave him alone. You can't reach them, Xie Lian. You know? But yeah, Lan Shanchu has this big monologue about how Xie Lian lied, and Xie Lian's sitting here like, what do you want me to say? You know, I feel for Xie Lian in this moment, especially now that I feel like when I get to the Donghua, going back to a lot of these parts is going to have so much more meaning now because of Xie Lian and what has happened in books 4. So, and then yeah, Lan Shanchu's saying all my friends were fake. I'm like, are we really going there? Okay. But I do like the little shot of Lan Shanchu as a kid when he's like up on the rooftop looking down with Xie Lian as the Goshi and saying that like there was no, like, you just lied to me. There was no point in thinking that there was a future with both of these countries. And Xie Lian's like, why are you coming to these dramatic conclusions? Like, no, that's not right. And I love the panel of Xie Lian, again, as the Goshi with the mask on it, smiling. It is such a contrast from Xie Lian with the smile crying mask, where you couldn't see his expression at all. Here, you could see the bottom half of his face that he was smiling with Lan Shanchu. And I like that they chose to not show his eyes in the panel of him as the Goshi. And then down below, when we go back to the present, they don't show they don't show anything above the mouth of Xie Lian there too. And Xie Lian's like, not everything I taught you was a lie, but you could not possibly understand everything I've gone through to get to this point. I don't like the fact that Lan Shanchu grabs Xie Lian by the neck and shakes him. The chapter ends right before we see Hua Cheng's reaction, but Lan Shanchu grabbing Xie Lian, I'm like, I don't think Hua Cheng's going to be like, wait a minute, no. Like, leave my Gege alone. Do not hurt him. And Xie Lian's like, they weren't lies. And he's like, think about it. Under your leadership, haven't things already changed? And that's where the chapter ends, which I'm really sad that's where the chapter ends, because I'm like, no. And Xie Lian's like, look, you actually changed things. Xirong's just trying to screw it up because he's a trash king. So I feel now, you know, we feel a little bit more wizened and experienced now that we've seen volume 6 and book 4. So we kind of go back and look at Lan Shanchu and go, oh, honey, you had no idea. You had no idea what Xie Lian had gone through. And we didn't either at the time. Xie Lian's good at putting up a front. So I've talked for nearly 20 minutes before we started, but I just want to say, as we start this new volume, I have no clue where we're going. I remember when I first started this story, there were people, like, around the time I was at volume 3, there were some people that I know that people had gotten onto. They were like, wait till you get to book 4. And I was like, I don't want to hear about it. And so I felt a little bit spoiled going into book 4, only in the regard that people had said it was really sad. And I was like, ugh. So, and I usually don't like knowing these things. I like going in completely surprised so that I can genuinely be like, oh, what's this? What's happening? So at this point, I have no clue. I don't want to know, so please don't spoil or give me hints and be like, this is going to be the best volume ever. Don't tell me. Please. But I have no idea. From this point on, I knew book 4 was going to be sad. Lived up to the hype. But I have no clue at this point what volume 7 and 8 are going to be like, and I don't want to know. I want to be completely surprised. And as I'm saying this, I'm sure some fool that's not going to listen to me is going to write out a comment, and hopefully my mods are like, don't read that, because I don't want to read comments where people are like, it's going to be the best volume ever. Please don't tell me that. Let me find out for myself, and we can share in the joy and sorrow together. But yeah, I have no clue what's going to happen. So we're going to be looking at chapters 199, 200, 201, and 202 today. So we're looking at 4 chapters, pages 13 to 44. It's not a lot of pages, but it's 4 chapters. So I'm like, we'll see. But yeah, I have no clue what to expect. I'm so excited. I can't wait. But we're not going to dilly-dally any longer. We're going to just dive right in. Haha, I'm so excited. And see what fresh fun awaits us in volume 7. So without further ado, we're finally going to start this jazz and see what happens. So we are going to start volume 7 of Heaven Official's Blessing, chapters 199 to 202. We're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Book 5, Heaven Official's Blessing. That tells me that book 5 is going to be volume 7 and 8. This is going to be the final book, right? That's going to be the final book, book 5, Heaven Official's Blessing, because it's the name of the series. So, all right. Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapters 199. Dominate heaven and earth. Divine being breaks through the kiln. Oh, okay. So we are potentially going back to the present. Okay. Xie Lian lay on the cold ground, his face still covered with a half-crying, half-smiling, cry-smiling mask. That is a tongue twister. Half-crying, half-smiling, cry-smiling mask. And White No Face was next to him, seeming to be admiring this appearance that looked exactly like his. The cry-smiling mask was pressed tightly against Xie Lian's face with some sort of peculiar force, and he couldn't pull it off no matter how he tried. White No Face says, just keep it on. Stop wasting your strength on pointless struggles. You want to leave this place? As long as you follow my directions, you can easily break out of the kiln. Xie Lian pretended he didn't exist. The White No Face always sought contempt from Xie Lian, and he wouldn't give up. He sighed, we could have become the strongest master and disciple, the best of friends. Why must you be so rebellious? Yeah, it's just like Palpatine and Vader, right? Xie Lian finally stopped what he was doing and replied in disgust. Stop using that tone. Like you've been through all the vicissitudes of life and have seen through the hearts of men. I really don't want to have a teacher or a friend like you. Oh! His revulsion was undeniably obvious, and White No Face sneered. I know in your heart. The only ones who can guide you are I know in your heart. The only ones who can guide you are Goshi and Junwu. Am I right? His tone was odd, full of disdain and ridicule. Xie Lian didn't care to tangle himself up with that subject and decided to ask something else. Long Ying, was he the first crown prince of Yong'an? Long Ying was from Yong'an, had contracted the human face disease, and that little crown prince was the only one Xie Lian could think of who might be a possibility. Oh, we'll talk about this. White No Face replied, that's right. He was the crown prince you knocked out and ditched in the palace of Yong'an, then set fire to after having butchered Long Ying's corpse to millions of pieces. The crown prince of Yong'an was Long Ying's only nephew, so it was probably then when the remains of the human face disease infected him. Ah. Xie Lian then asked, why didn't his disease affect anyone else? White No Face replied, because the people at the palace of Yong'an discovered he got infected. In order to not have anyone else affected, the order was given to suffocate him with a blanket in secret, but he struggled and fought back and then fled. And then Yong'an announced to the outside world that both the king of Yong'an and the crown prince had passed away from illness. Through whatever internal conflict, another one of Long Ying's nephews was established as the crown prince, and that was Long Chuanchu's ancestor. Ah, okay. Funny, we get this Manhua chapter along with this. How did you manage to deceive him? I didn't deceive him, White No Face replied. I only told him the truth of who was the criminal responsible for him becoming such a monster. As long as he lent me a bit of him, I would help avenge him. You call that a bit? Xie Lian was incredulous. You swallowed him of all of his nutrients. The White No Face replied quietly, with his appearance, neither man nor ghost, no one would treat him with sincerity. So staying in this world was suffering in itself. Suddenly, Xie Lian said, "Your Royal Highness." In that instant, Xie Lian could tell the creature probably wanted to answer to that address, but he held back. Then Xie Lian tried again. Are we getting this? Are we getting this? You're the Crown Prince of Wuxiang, aren't you? Once the words left his lips, he could feel the stifling heat within the kiln had solidified. The moment Xie Lian had fallen in, he'd been considering this question. Oh my God, are we getting answers? Are we getting answers? The reason why he could understand the language spewed from the mouths of those corpse-eating rats was because among Junwu, the Goshi, and the White No-Face, someone had transplanted part of their memories and feelings onto him, which meant among the three of them, at least one of them was from Wuxiang. Junwu was born later than the fall of the kingdom of Yuan, so it had to be the Goshi or the Whiteface who were most suspicious. Why was Hua Cheng shunned from the kiln? It wouldn't be because he was a supreme, because Xie Lian had confirmed with him that even the ghost kings who become supremes could re-enter the kiln, just like how a heavenly official could go through another heavenly calamity after ascension. Yet, he still vanished halfway. The most straightforward explanation that Xie Lian could think of was that this kiln obeyed the command of the White No-Face. Okay. Then, what was White No-Face's identity most likely to be? A moment later, it was dead silent within the darkness, and Xie Lian repeated with certainty, "You are the Crown Prince of Wuxiang." Finally, White No-Face was no longer silent. He lunged towards Xie Lian, his palm blast sharp and powerful, and at this time, it was Xie Lian's turn to dodge. He leapt up and asked his dodge, "Your Highness, I've got a question for you. How come you never show your true face to anyone?" The White No-Face said darkly, "Your Highness, I'm warning you not to address me with that title." "You call me Your Highness, so why can't I address you the same?" Xie Lian rebuked. "You won't answer, so I'll have to guess myself. There are two reasons why you don't want anyone to see your true face. Either you are someone I know, or someone I don't know, but once I see your real face, I could easily figure out who you are. Or your true appearance is exceedingly ugly. So ugly you can't stand it yourself." Just like 2 whizzing sounds later, a sharp pain charged up his arm, and it was the White No-Face who had forcefully seized him. "My dear Crown Prince, is it because I've been a little too friendly that you feel there's no longer a need to fear me?" This voice was brimming with frost, and while in pain, Xie Lian still hung onto his consciousness. White No-Face seemed to have really been angered, and he picked up that black sword, forcing it towards Xie Lian. "The name you gave this sword is Fang Xin." Watching with unblinking eyes as that chilling blade came closer and closer to his own throat, Xie Lian's expression remained hardened. "Is that a problem?" White No-Face humphed. "You don't know how to give names. Listen well. The original name of this sword is Zhu Jin." Suddenly, Xie Lian's eyes widened. "Who's there?" "What?" But White No-Face didn't bother to look back. "You want to use a child's trick to fight me?" "What?" "Function means affections of a young woman. Zhu Jin means intent to execute or an executed heart." Oh my God! Oh my God! Xie Lian was perplexed. "You didn't notice." "There's nothing, so what is there to notice?" the White No-Face said coldly. He didn't notice, but Xie Lian sure did. Earlier, Function's blade reflected the firelight on the ground, and the firelight flashed past the stone wall above them, and in an instant, Xie Lian saw a face. What? Xie Lian couldn't swear he wasn't mistaken in what he saw. He definitely saw a human face, a gigantic human face. White No-Face's cultivation could only be stronger than Xie Lian, so how could he possibly not notice? Unless it was something more terrifying than the White No-Face. What is happening? This time they took to look at the face was too short, but the vision remained in his memory. The face had all 5 features, and it looked familiar. He felt a chill down his back. "There's something else inside this kiln." However, the White No-Face replied, "Other than you and me inside the kiln, there are only rocks and lava." He was about to say something more when suddenly he thought to himself, "Wait, rocks, a face, and familiar." The lights turned on and it dawned in him, and Xie Lian figured out what it was he saw, so that was it. Once he knew, Xie Lian's hands instantly started forming rapidly, seals from behind his back. The white fake noticed in his movements and said, "It's pointless. Even if you..." But unexpectedly, before he finished, a huge cracking noise came from behind and above them, and at the same time, rocks and earth came plunging down like a storm. The white no-face sensed something was coming from behind him and coming for him, and swiftly flashed away to dodge the attack. He certainly blitzed fast enough. No one could be faster than him, and he should have dodged perfectly. Only unfortunately, the thing attacking him was too gigantic. It was a giant hand. Its fingers balled into a fist, and it came crashing down heavily right over the white no-face. The hand was a giant hand made of stone. It really was too big. Just a single fist could rival a mansion, and the firelight on the ground could only illuminate this part. Everything from above the wrist was all soaked in darkness. Amidst the cracking sound of rocks, it flipped over its hand and opened its palm up towards Xie Lian. While gigantic, its fingers were long and slender, the joints exquisite and delicate, able to hold flowers and wield swords. Xie Lian seized the sword, stumbled as he crawled up from the ground, and leapt onto the heart of the palm. Just as that hand was about to hoist him up, Xie Lian suddenly remembered he forgot something and cried hastily, "Wait!" Then he jumped down and grabbed his bamboo hat before leaping back up. The giant hand lifted, drawing further and further away from the firelight. Xie Lian could also sense they were going higher and higher, and his hands formed seals once again. "Break out!" With that command, he could feel a slight falling sensation, as if the giant holding him up had bent its knees and was preparing. The next second, he felt his entire body plunging all of a sudden, and the giant had launched towards the sky and went straight to crash against the sealed mouth of the kiln. Along with the violent tremor, Xie Lian heard the extremely obvious sound of cracking. It was a sound of stone. Unable to handle such violent cracking, it was about to shatter. Soon after, a white light came leaking out from above. He had broken out! The sealed top of the kiln was broken through, and an immense blinding white light came pouring through as whirlwinds twisted, shrieking and howling. Xie Lian stood in the palm of that giant, a hand pressing the bamboo hat onto his head, while another blocked the snowstorm that came blowing onto his face. The stifling hot air was swept away completely, and Xie Lian inhaled deeply a mouthful of freezing and fresh air before shouting, "San Long!" His first syllables was still echoing when in an instant he was pulled into an embrace from behind by a pair of hands. Xie Lian stiffened at first and looked down, but when he saw red sleeves and silver vambraces circled around his waist, he relaxed. A deep, forlorn voice came from above his ears. "I was going crazy. Oh my God! Oh, what is this? What is this? What is this?" Hearing this, Xie Lian hurriedly turned around and cupped those cheeks in his hands and soothed, "Don't go crazy, don't go crazy. I've already come out." Ah! It was Hua Cheng. Hua Cheng's black hair was mussed up and his eyes were a little lost. The cry-smiling mask Xie Lian couldn't remove, no matter how hard he tried, was easily pulled off by him and tossed away. Xie Lian didn't know why he had to use his hands to cup Hua Cheng's cheeks, but he did so subconsciously, probably so he could comfort him, but also because Xie Lian was afraid Hua Cheng's face would be frostbitten by the snowstorm. After all, however long Xie Lian had stayed inside the kiln must have been however long Hua Cheng had stayed guarding the mouth of the volcano. They went in together perfectly fine, but one was suddenly thrown out, and knowing nothing of what was going on inside, of course he was going crazy. Hua Cheng hugged Xie Lian tightly and said despairingly, "I couldn't go into the kiln no matter what I did, and you had to come breaking out of it on your own. I'm really so fucking..." Xie Lian said quickly, "So long, it's okay. It's really all right. Besides, I didn't break through on my own." Hua Cheng finally calmed down a little and asked, "What? Gege, how did you come out?" "You helped me break through," Xie Lian replied. "Look." Xie Lian said as he pointed upwards, and Hua Cheng gazed towards where he was pointing. Amidst the snow and the wind, a giant sculpture of a man carved from the stones of mountains stood with frost flying about its face, vaguely looking as if it was holding up the heavens and standing on the earth. In that moment, the two of them were standing in the heart of the palm of a giant statue. Oh my God, it's him. The contours of the face of that statue were gentle and beautiful. Long-browed with elegant eyes, the lips refined with the corners curved up slightly. like it was smiling but not, affectionate but not frivolous, expressionless but not unkind. It was the face of compassion and beauty. It was Xie Lian's face! Oh! Xie Lian raised his head to look at its face and said softly, "Is this the one you told me about? The best divine statue you've sculpted?" I thought it was the mountain spirits, and I was going to go a whole different direction with this, but no, this is fine. This is fine. We'll talk about it in the discussion, but, Hua Cheng gazed up at it too, and it was a long while before his eyes fell back on Xie Lian, who was beside him. The giant stone divine statue must have been sculpted when Hua Cheng was trapped inside the kiln, when he was severely beaten down in intense suffering. Over the centuries, it had been hidden inside the deepest darkness of Tonglu. Part of it was still covered with ivy. The kiln was its natural and perilous cavern, and it was this most spectacular cavern's only god. It and the kiln were of one body, made up of the same material. Otherwise, if it was a divine statue carved from ordinary rocks, it wouldn't have been able to break out of the kiln at all, and would only shatter to pieces. And if it wasn't Xie Lian himself, or if before they jumped down, Hua Cheng hadn't given Xie Lian enough spiritual power, Xie Lian wouldn't have been able to summon and move this divine statue. Xie Lian turned to Hua Cheng and said, so long I've come out. We've broken through together. Oh my God! Ah! This is the best way to start Volume 7. This is the best. This is the best. Okay. In Chapter 200, Dominate Heaven and Earth, the divine being breaks through the kiln, Part 2. Just then, the two suddenly felt a wave of tremors, and at the same time, both their smiles faded, replaced by tension and vigilance. Xie Lian wondered with a bit of nervousness, what's going on? Is it this divine statue that's shaking? It's not going to collapse, is it? The sealed top of the kiln was made of 1,000,000 tons of rocks, filled with evil after all, and if this giant stone statue was going to fall apart because it broke through the entrance, then he was going to feel awful. Don't worry, it's fine. It's the mountain that's shaking, Hua Cheng said. Sure enough, below them, a heavy layer of snow collapsed like a torrent, and some areas already had the body of the mountain exposed. It seemed something was about to break through the kiln. Hua Cheng stood in front of Xie Lian, shielding him. He remarked, "It's the white no-face." Of course, he didn't believe that a punch by this giant divine statue could knock the white no-face dead. At most, it would make the creature falter for a moment, so Xie Lian was on high alert. But not a moment later, both of them could sense the scorching hot air come blowing in their faces. The scalding air erupted from the mouth of the volcano with a bottom that couldn't be seen, and there was a smell of sulfur. Xie Lian sensed that danger was approaching, and Hua Cheng said darkly, "Gege, leave." Xie Lian formed a hand seal, and soon after, with Hua Cheng in tow, they leapt onto that giant divine statue's wrist and ran up its arm, stopping and standing their ground at its shoulder. The divine statue obeyed his command and took off with a gigantic wide step and going along with the rolling current of snow. One slide was several miles, and the snow waves it created crashed around its body. Because both its arms were open, even though it was a body of millions of tons, it maintained good balance. However, they had only slid halfway down before the entire mountain was quaking even harder. And the divine statue also looked like it was staggering from the tremors. Xie Lian and Hua Cheng looked up and heard a giant rumbling sound. At the peak of the kiln, a pitch-black pillar of smoke blew out. This giant sound shook the heavens and the earths, plus that apocalyptic smoke pillar. Xie Lian was entirely dumbstruck. It only took an instant before the entire sky was enveloped by a thick black cloud of smoke. Within those sun-concealing black clouds, countless human faces, arms, legs, and other limbs were tumbling and entangling, exceedingly horrifying. Xie Lian had only witnessed this scene like this hundreds of years ago and was now seeing it again. Oh my God, that's the souls of the dead from the kingdom of Wuyang. It seemed every person in Wuyang was buried alive by the volcanic eruption was there. Suddenly, Hua Cheng was literally, "Gege, down below, 10 meters away." The words had only just left his lips before Xie Lian had already directed the giant stone statue's right hand to smash down. About 10 meters down below the snow in the field of white, there stood a figure of a white-clothed man, and it was the white no-face. He seemed to have melded into one with the snow, but he still couldn't deceive their eyes. Heavy, thick layers of snow blew like a giant white tsunami from that smash, but the strike did not hit its target. Since he already had fallen for this move of darkness once, White No-Face was naturally prepared. The white figure flashed away, and in the next second his form appeared at the knee of the giant divine statue. The giant stone statue didn't hesitate before it smashed at its own kneecap. However, the slap was still midway before Xie Lian snapped to and gritted his teeth to exert force, forcibly pulling it back, thinking, oh, that was close. The seal top of that kiln was forcefully broken open through the divine stone statue, so Xie Lian allowed it to smash against its own kneecap. If he didn't control the strength well, then it might lose a limb. Perhaps that was the reason why White No-Face intentionally hopped on. Xie Lian instantly braked on the side, while on the other, Hua Cheng languidly pulled onto his own and pulled out his own long and slender silver scimitar. He ordered White No-Face, get the hell down. The White No-Face looked up towards them. Hua Cheng said coldly, this divine statue isn't for you to taint. Xie Lian said suddenly, so long! He pointed above the summit of the kiln. There was something behind the pillar of black smoke that was also blowing out, something crimson and gold, flowing and burning. It was lava. The crimson gold lava rolled and mixed with the black smoke, enveloping the skies and the earth, and flowed downwards from the mouth of the kiln. Using this chance, the White No-Face leapt abruptly and disappeared into the snow. Xie Lian didn't have a mind to catch him and shouted, run! The giant divine statue heard his order and took off in large steps, thumping as it roared down the kiln. Landing flat on its feet at the foot of the mountain, the ground moved and the mountain shook. However, it might have been fast. The speed of that lava and black smoke wasn't slow either, and it was practically following right after its tail. After landing, Xie Lian didn't dare to stick around and directed the divine statue to stand up and continue to run while carrying them. As they ran, Xie Lian felt its speed seemed to be slowing down. While feeling dread and confusion, just as he wondered if he was just imagining it, Xie Lian felt his body pause. And then along with the divine statue, he started plunging downwards. The divine statue actually stopped obeying his command and came to a halt, bending to one knee on the ground. After kneeling down, its body was starting to fall forward, like it was physically exhausted and about to faint, and Xie Lian's heart jumped to its throat. Oh no, it was going to collapse! The fiery torrent of black smoke was going to catch up. Just then, Xie Lian suddenly felt something tighten around his waist. With a simple yank, Hua Cheng pulled him over easily, a hand hugging his waist, raising another hand to lift his chin. Before pressing his chilled lips against his. Because he ran out of power, right? Xie Lian's eyes bulged as a rush of cool and refreshing air filled his lungs, flowing through all of his limbs like his entire person had been invigorated. The kiss was very short, and soon after Hua Cheng parted his lips, Gege tried standing up again. Do it! Xie Lian instantly snapped out of it and reformed the hand seals, and right before the stone statue was about to fall flat on the ground, its arms forcefully reached out and supported itself on the ground, and soon after it rose to its feet again. I mean, if we've got to keep kissing to power this thing, let's do this. It turns out, it wasn't the giant stone statue was physically exhausted, it's that it really was physically exhausted. In order to control such a gigantic divine statue, the spiritual power required was insane. And that bit of spiritual power Hua Cheng had limped him before had burnt out, so naturally it would slow down and sway like it was going to collapse. Now that the spiritual powers were injected, it became alive again. And this time it ran faster than before, its movements more agile. But Hua Cheng said, Gege, run faster. Xie Lian wanted to run faster, but at the same time he was afraid of controlling. The spell would be exhausted, and he said with uncertainty, will it be able to hang on if we go faster? What if our spiritual powers run out? Hua Cheng said next to his ear, surely that won't. You just focus on running. Don't be afraid. I'm right here beside you. Hua Cheng only stood there behind his person, his hands supporting his waist steadily. And with just this person, it felt as if the entire world was behind him. Just one! Just one is enough! Xie Lian inhaled deeply and closed his eyes. Okay. Then he extended his arms forward and unleashed all his spiritual power, offering up the strongest of hand seals. And he shouted, run! The giant divine statue ran wildly, each step taking several miles, crossing over guiles in one step, flying over hills in another, and sure enough, it left the black cloud and lava far behind in its distance. It really was a gigantic object that couldn't be ignored. With every step, rocks fell and boulders tumbled, exciting waves of strong tremors. Countless monsters and demons scattered throughout Mount Tonglu all felt the ground shaking like crazy and were all terrified. When they looked up, many could see the black cloud swirling and spreading in the sky, and while they were a little amazed, they really didn't care about it. They were in Mount Tonglu after all, so bizarre sights weren't anything rare. Weren't those resentful spirits inside the black clouds anyway? They themselves were creatures similar to the resentful spirits. They'd seen it every day, so what if there was anything to be afraid of? Yet when they saw the divine statue of a martial god stomping past, they were all petrified. What was that thing? Instantly, there was howling and wailing from all around. What a gigantic man! They had never seen such a huge statue before. It really was too terrifying. Xie Lian wanted to detour around the royal capital of Wuxiang at first, in case his divine statue trampled those old houses with 2,000 years of history into ruinous wreckage. But then he remembered something. He asked Songlong, "Are General Pei and Lord Rainmaster and the others near here?" "Yes," Hua Cheng replied. "Well, come back. There's something left behind. Let's pick them up and carry them away." Thus, the giant stone statue had only run past the target, retreated. The giant stone statue that had run past the target retreated a few steps. Just as it was about to turn back, Xie Lian suddenly felt his body shake. He had lost his footing and his entire person was thrown into the air. Only in midair did he realize what happened. The divine statue had tripped and fell. Xie Lian and Hua Cheng landed steadily on the chest of the divine statue, and Xie Lian looked over as he tried to direct it to stand back up. What made this giant divine statue trip wasn't him, but a majestic mountain. Oh no! The mountain was far from the size of the kiln itself, but compared to the giant stone statue, it was still much bigger. Xie Lian recalled clearly when they first came, they had never crossed through such a mountain. Thus his sight went past this mountain and gazed at what was behind it. Sure enough, behind it stood 2 other big mountains of similar size. 3 mountains blocked before this giant stone divine statue. Hua Cheng spoke up, "Gege, be careful. They are the guards of Mount Tonglu. Old age, sickness, and death." Oh my god, it's all coming together! Oh my god, yes! Chapter 201, Dominate! The Heaven and Earth Divine Beings Break Through the Kiln, Part 3. Oh, the giant stone statue was just slowly crawling to its feet when the first mountain spirit came crashing over. Xie Lian recalled Hua Cheng had once told him back then when he was in Mount Tonglu, the 3 large mountains were a menace, always chasing him down, so naturally they shouldn't be underestimated. Xie Lian planned to volley up and flip over its head, but he had never controlled such an enormous divine statue before after all, and to manipulate such complicated movements, he couldn't help but mess up. He didn't manage to jump up, but was instantly knocked down once again. The heavens shook and the earth quaked. The giant stone statue fell down near the royal capital of Wuxiang and crushed an entire street. With just a slight movement, a series of cracking noises could be heard, and the sound of those glamorous residences and palaces being crushed and shattered by the stone statue. In the midst of all the shaking, Xie Lian was almost thrown off again, but Hua Cheng firmly grabbed onto his hand. He exclaimed, "Come with me!" He took Xie Lian and hopped onto the head of the giant divine statue with a few steps. It turns out, this giant flower-crowned martial god used a small crown to tie up its hair, which looked like a small balcony. The 2 hopped onto the crown, finally finding their place to settle, much steadier than standing on the shoulder or in the palm of the divine statue. Of course, they hadn't had a chance to relax when the mountain spirit came at them again, knocking the giant stone statue back a few steps. Fortunately, Xie Lian was prepared this time and wasn't knocked down, but he accidentally trampled another series of houses. Xie Lian couldn't help but ache for them, praying for forgiveness in his mind. Controlling the divine statue clumsily slip away and avoid the houses, Xie Lian wondered in bafflement, "Why do they keep chasing after me? To beat me down? What did I do?" It's not that they're chasing Gege specifically. They'd chase down anyone to beat them down, and Gege looks particularly conspicuous right now. Such a big creature, he is rather conspicuous. Before Xie Lian finished his thoughts, the 3 mountain spirits came besieging together. They surrounded this giant stone statue, crushing towards the center incessantly, trying to crush the statue to pieces. The divine statue couldn't move a limb, and Xie Lian couldn't move either. He'd used all of his strength to have the statue pushed back, but he couldn't move an inch, so it might not be able to defend. He was just trying to think if there might be another way to escape and involuntarily backed up a step, bumping into a chest. He looked back and Hua Cheng grasped his shoulders. "Let everything go and fight. Don't worry, none of them are your match. There is nothing in this world that can stop you in your step." His chest was like the strongest of shields, and suddenly, Xie Lian was filled with confidence. A wave of refreshing currents flowed through his body, and he gave it all to strike back, breaking through the siege. Oh my God! Rumble, rumble, those three mountain spirits were forcibly pushed miles away. Dust flew, rocks fled, smoke and debris rolled. However, after these, they were pushed back. They immediately came forth again, ready to attack once more. Xie Lian's hands instantly changed into several hand seals. Do not block my way! This giant stone statue leapt into the air, its feet landing over the head of the two mountain spirits. And then his hand rested at the hilt of the sword hung on his waist, and he pulled out the sword! This entire string of movements flowed like streams of cloud and water, and the giant stone divine statue completed the actions fluently. Its might like a long stretch of a rainbow, without any hesitations, no different than a real person. Oh my God! Sucking in a breath, Xie Lian shouted, I'll cut you. Oh, I won't cut you yet. Hold on. He was already ready, prepared to swing a glorious sword and cut the mountains into valleys, yet unexpectedly, when the sword was pulled out, it didn't feel right. He looked up and he was instantly sweat dropped. The giant stone statue pulled out a sword, but there was only a hilt in its hand. What's going on? Where's the blade? Oh. Xie Lian was dumbfounded, and Hua Cheng dropped his face in his hands, supported his forehead with his two fingers. Gege, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. I didn't carve the blade of this divine statue. It's my negligence. Of course! Hua Cheng had carved the statue upon the inner stones of the wall of the kiln, and in a standing posture. The giant stone statue's robes were flowing and layered, and the sword on the waist was concealed beneath the sleeves, unexposed, so it was only a hilt that was carved. Before the divine statue was injected with spiritual powers and started moving, since it didn't have a blade, especially carved, naturally a blade wouldn't magically appear. Hua Cheng frowned slightly, his expression solemn. It is my miscalculation. It's not exquisite enough. Next time I will carve out every detail! Xie Lian could tell he was serious and quickly said, No. It's already exquisite. Really? Oh my God, these two. Oh my God. In any case, there was no blade, so the mountains couldn't be cut. And thus Xie Lian instantly changed battle tactics. Bolt! He hastily directed the giant stone statue to jump off the head of the two mountain spirits, tossing the useless stone hilt behind, and stretched its legs to continue its mad run. The two stood on top of the crown, atop the divine statue's head as the wild winds blew at their faces, their black hair, white robes, and red sleeves fluttering and flipping. Even though they were fleeing, they painted a beautiful image. A silver butterfly flew next to Xie Lian's ear and transmitted a few human voices. He instantly seized the butterfly and called out, Is that Fengshen and Muqing on the other side? Our Lord Rainmaster and General Pei there too? Sure enough, familiar voices came from the other end of the butterfly. I say, Your Highness, Pei Ming said, there's no need to be so loud when asking questions. Oh my God, it feels so good to hear these people. Sorry, I have too much spiritual power at the moment. Let me control it a little, Xie Lian said. Muqing's voice came too. What? Did you just say you have too much spiritual power? You? Have you all met up? Xie Lian asked. Where are you? We've met up with General Pei Jr., and the others, and everyone is in the woods near the Wuyang River. We're about to retreat to the outside, Muqing said. Fengshen's voice came. What's going on your end? A strong, unusual movement seemed to have come from the kiln just now. Do you need us to go back and assist? Xie Lian replied quickly, No need. You just stay there and we'll come pick you up all very soon and we'll talk then. We're already here. Ahead was the dried up Wuyang River, and the giant stone statue crossed the gully and crouched down near the dense forest. Coincidentally, Xie Lian saw Fengshen and Muqing also had come out of the woods, looking around, seemingly searching for them. But they were looking in the wrong direction. They never thought to look up, so they didn't see Xie Lian and Hua Cheng at all. Fengshen said to the butterfly, Your Highness, you're not here. Where are you? Xie Lian cupped his hand to his mouth and yelled to the bottom, I'm already here! Look up above your heads! Only then did the two notice they were shrouded in a gigantic shadow, and they looked up uniformly. Thus, they both saw at the same time an incomparably giant Xie Lian that was currently crouched down by the forest looking downwards at them. There was even a very Xie Lian-like friendly smile on its face. Hua Cheng couldn't be bothered to spare a glance at the two down below. Ah, yes! And he stood on the side hugging his arms, his demure, lazy. Xie Lian waved to the bottom. Do you see me? I'm over here. However, because the visual shock of this gigantic version of Xie Lian was too great, it was hard to notice anything else at first glance. WuXiang's entire field of vision was completely overtaken by this face, and he mumbled, "I haven't gone mad, have I?" Both Fengshen's eyes were filled with this face too, and he mumbled, "What the fuck? What the fuck? What the actual fuck? What in the world is this?" Xie Lian said, "Well, Hua Cheng raised his brows, looking as if he exerted an immense effort to hold back a laugh. Truth be told, there really was never anyone who had ever seen such a large and incredibly realistically sculptured divine statue. In the past, the largest divine statue belonged to Junwu, but even that one was only half the size of this giant divine. Hua Cheng is just like, yes, bask in it. Bask in its radiance of my gege. Look at what I've made. He's like a freaking cat that like drops the mouse at the feet of the owners, being like, look at what I've brought you. Fengshen, and he is just reveling in the fact that Fengshen and WuXiang were both too shocked. And Xie Lian had to yell a few times before they found where the real one was located. The others all came out of the wood, one after the other, and when they looked up, almost all of them were so shocked by this giant divine statue, they almost twisted their necks and feet. Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and made the divine giant statue lay its hands on the ground, opening its palm. The kiln volcano has erupted, and the fires are going to scorch this area soon. And there's also 3 mountain spirits who might catch up soon, so come quick, I'll take all of you away. The party climbed up the hand of the divine statue, and each found a place to settle. Xie Lian smelled that suffocating smell of sulfur in the air, and when he looked back, the black smoke and flying dust were rapidly spreading. So he closed the palm of the divine statue and stood up, continuing its large steps forward. After Pei Ming and the others got over their shock, and they were fine, but Fengshen and WuXiang were still never came back to their senses. This was probably because they were too familiar with the face, the demeanor, the physique of the owner of this divine statue, so having it magnified to such a size, the shock was particularly strong. Fengshen was standing on top of this divine statue's shoulder and was still stewing in disbelief. Who did this? Who carved this? How come I've never seen this before? I've never even heard of it before. Hua Cheng smiled fakely. There is way too much you haven't seen in this world. Although he didn't clarify who, almost everyone, especially Fengshen and WuXiang, looked down on the same answer. This guy did it. I can't believe this, WuXiang said. How are you moving this thing? How much spiritual power does this need? Do you have enough? I thought you didn't have any spiritual powers. This time, Hua Cheng didn't answer. Xie Lian stole a glimpse at him, pressed his fist in his mouth, answering ambiguously, well... If there isn't anything you can borrow, am I right? Such an easy thing. Ah! Baby knows! He knows! Yes! If there isn't any you can borrow, am I right? Such an easy thing. Oh, well, yeah! Oh, my God. Along the way, the various mountains and demons saw lava pouring down, blazing fires blowing crazily, and they realized that things were going wrong. When they saw people were climbing up the giant stone statue, they cried out, "Wait for me! Too! Me, I'm coming too! Take us! However, Hua Cheng said, "Get the hell down." A wave of silver butterflies flew out, shimmering a chilling light. And then there was a wailing and howling down below. Yin Yu was cradling Guzi, who was sound asleep, and he called out, "Chongju, your highness!" The empty-shelled people and the corpse-eating rats from below suddenly became rowdy and started moving in large groups, looking like they were heading out of Mount Tonglu. The Rainmaster, on the other hand, was riding the black ox, watching the sky intently. Those creatures inside the black clouds seemed to want to fly outside. Her words were true. The creatures writhing inside the black clouds were all resentful spirits that thirsted for flesh, live flesh to possess, and then metamorphosize into the human face disease. There weren't any living beings inside of Mount Tonglu. There were only monsters and ghosts, or heavenly officials that they couldn't penetrate, so of course they wanted to get out. Millions of contorted human faces, dragging their long tails of black smoke, swirled like deformed snakes and worms above the sky. Xie Lian's hands trembled slightly, but he said, "Mount Tonglu has a barrier. Nothing outside can come in, and nothing inside can go out. So those resentful spirits shouldn't be able to fly out for the moment." But unexpectedly, before he finished, Hua Cheng suddenly clutched his hand. Xie Lian's heart tightened at the same time by that gesture, and he quickly clutched back. "What is it? Have I drained too much?" I'm sorry. I should conserve my use after all. One of Hua Cheng's hands was covering his right eye. That's not it, Gege. You don't have to worry about it. It's Mount Tonglu's barrier. It's broken. Broken? He only just said not to worry because there was a barrier. What the heck? It's broken, Hua Cheng said, probably because the white no-face who opened it. Those things are going to fly out. Chapter 202. Taking the helm, 4 martial gods transform into a sword. What? What? If they really did allow those resentful spirits to fly out, then wouldn't that unleash a 3rd epidemic of the human face disease? Xie Lian instantly cried, well, we have to find a way to stop it. Below on the shoulder, Wuxing's black robes and hair were getting windswept and mussed. Well, how can we do that? The giant stone statue abruptly stopped and roused the clouds of dust and sand. Everyone hold your breath first. Then, the flying black smoke that had been right on their tail caught up. The giant stone statue raised a hand and smashed, and the winds of that smash shook the heavens and quaked the earth as if this was on the ground. And if this was on the ground, it would have been a gale that could uproot century-old trees. However, there were nonetheless still parts that were broken up and other parts that were blown away. Xie Lian couldn't bear the sight of it and said, if only there was a sword. Hua Cheng said, Gege, there is a way to get a sword. Oh, how? For this, we'll have to see if your heavenly colleagues down there would be willing. If you've got a way, then just say it and stop cajoling him, Fengshen said. Xie Lian had pretty much guessed it. However, are you saying General Pei and the others could come together and transform into a sword? What is this, Power Rangers? What is happening? That's right, Hua Cheng said. Heavenly officials inside Mount Tonglu have their powers restricted. But there are several martial gods here. If the 4 of them transform into one spirit body and strike together, their might should be considerable. Pei Ming was the first to respond. I think this is doable. Let's have an orgy and become a sword. Wuxing, however, was still doubtful. Is it really? There's how many martial gods here? 3, right? Pei Su and Yin Yu's powers were completely gone. And the Rain Master wasn't a martial god. So the only ones who could come together were Pei Ming, Fengshen, and Wuxing. But Pei Ming replied, no, there's 4. Qi Ying is here too. What? Yin Yu hesitated for a moment. Then, with one hand still holding Guzi, the other flipped out a Daruma doll. Yet unexpectedly, before the seal was released, the Daruma doll started shaking wildly on its own, shrieking with a noise that was piercing to the ears. The sound stabbed everyone, and they all reached up to cover their ears, and Yin Yu hastily sealed it anew, flipping out a different Daruma doll, as he nervously explained to himself. Oh, sorry about that. I grabbed the wrong one. That was the green ghost Chi Rong right now. This one is the right one. I'm glad Chi Rong is still here in Daruma doll spirit. Then he tossed the Daruma doll into the air and exploded into red smoke. The form of a young man appeared within the mist, tumbling down. The giant divine statue lifted a hand to catch him, and the young man flipped and landed steadily on his palm. He scratched that curly, blood-stained head, looked up, and he saw a large group of people and became confused. Yin Yu had already snuck behind. Someone's back to hide, but he was instantly picked out by Chan Yizhen. He jumped up and shouted, Xishang! In an instant, Chan Yizhen came stomping up. However, Yin Yu had got headaches just seeing this face. He'd rather listen to Chi Rong shriek for 3 days and nights than to speak one more word to Chan Yizhen. Fortunately, Pei Ming snatched Chan Yizhen right away. Come, there's time to work. It's time to work, Qi Ying. You can have your reunion after the work is done. Chan Yizhen was profoundly confused. Plus, he was biased against Pei Ming. He seemed ready to punch his face, but then he looked up and saw that Xie Lian was there, and his hands clapped in a prayer towards him, begging sincerely, Please and thank you, Qi Ying. While he didn't understand the situation at all, he still scratched his head and joined the ranks. For Wuxing to become a sword for another martial god, he wasn't without opinions. But now that he managed to put 4 together in a group, he couldn't just say he wouldn't do it. So he stayed silent. Thus, upon the palm of the divine statue, the 4 formed a line in the order of Pei Ming, Fengshen, Chan Yizhen, and Wuxing. Hua Cheng leaned his elbows on the edges of the crown platform and took a glance. Isn't the order of the last 2 reversed? Logically, the order Pei Ming, Fengshen, Wuxing, and Chan Yizhen would have made more sense. In comparison, Chan Yizhen's spiritual powers weren't too stable, so if he's situated in the middle of the sword, it might snap halfway if it swung too aggressively. Xie Lian wiped his face of its sweat. No, it's not. Fengxian and WuXiang should never be placed together because they might start beating each other up halfway through. There must be someone to separate them. Hearing this, Hua Cheng raised his brows, his expression seeming to say, please have them beat each other to death. That'd be great. I can't believe this. This is insane. When they looked down again, the spiritual light suddenly emitted from the four bodies were stronger and stronger, spreading out, forming into one. Finally, they became a sword of spiritual light. The moment the sword shook shape, the giant statue tossed it into the air, reached out and gripped it. With the sharp sword in hand, Xie Lian was like a tiger with wings added. His might increasing exponentially, and he struck out. The resentful spirits with long black smoke tails screeched unceasingly when slashed through by his sword of spiritual light, and their voices abruptly stopped. Chasing after them on tailwinds of victory, Xie Lian's sword danced like a wild flower, slashing millions of ghosts into shattering pieces, like the winds blowing apart fragmented swords. Wherever the blade swept through, if it was firework, it was as if fireworks exploded in the sky. Extremely beautiful to see. All the monsters and demons down below were stupefied by the sight. And only when the 1,000-ton boots of the giant stone statue came stomping over did they remember to flee. Just as Xie Lian was engrossed in all the slashing, suddenly the giant stone statue seemed to have stumbled a step, like it was going to fall forward, and Xie Lian hastily used the sword to support it off the ground, steadying it. The martial guards who formed the sword array asked, Your Highness, what's going on? Keep fighting. They're gathering together again. Oh no, they're gonna see. Xie Lian had controlled this giant stone statue for so long and was feeling slightly tired. His head covered in sweat, his mind also high in tension. It's nothing, it's just that all the spiritual power had been burnt through, that's all. So he whipped his head around, and Hua Cheng was standing but inches behind him, seeming like he was going to reach out for him. Xie Lian stopped caring for everything else and went right ahead. Oh my god! Oh my god! He glomped over and cupped Hua Cheng's face in his hands, slightly tipping his toes, closing his eyes before he pressed his lips over. Fengxian was, WuXiang was, Chanyishan was, and Bai was. Oh! It wasn't enough. Just cupping Hua Cheng's face. And since it was going to be the same either way, Xie Lian thought he might as well suck more. So his arms circled around Hua Cheng's neck tightly and kissed deeper. All the fatigue earlier was completely swept away. His body was suddenly filled with spiritual power again. However, the giant sword of spiritual light in the grip of the giant stone statue was instantly clamoring with riotous noise. Fengxian was shaken. What is this? What are you two doing? Your Highness! Xie Lian accidentally choked a bit, and only then did he break away. He didn't dare look down and shouted towards the sky, I'm borrowing spiritual powers! I'm only borrowing spiritual powers! Very proper! WuXiang was shaken too. You didn't need to do this to borrow spiritual powers, though. Just slap or smack or something would have been fine. Xie Lian didn't know what he was saying anymore, and he cried randomly, I've been seen through. It's not actually borrowing spiritual powers. Seeing him like this, Hua Cheng also laughed out loud. He cupped Xie Lian's face back with his hands, leaned down and kissed his forehead, speaking gently, Don't be nervous, Gege. As strange as it was, after this, Xie Lian suddenly returned to normal. He pretended he hadn't heard Fengxian and WuXiang's voices, and he grew solemn, forming hand seals once more. The giant stone statue pulled the sword of spiritual light from the ground and started slashing and cutting wildly like it was filled with inexhaustible strength. Chanyishan was suddenly filled with awe and respect. So that really was borrowing spiritual powers just now. It suddenly became strong. Oh my god, Chanyishan's gonna get some ideas. WuXiang couldn't hold back and exclaimed, Complete bullshit, what do you know? But soon after, he probably thought there wasn't a need to explain such a thing to a man-child like Chanyishan and forcibly changed his tune. Yes, that's right. It's borrowing spiritual powers. Pei Ming laughed heartily. That's right indeed. So, but you can't borrow like that so casually. Do you understand, Qi Ying? Oh my god! Fengxian gaped. What are you all saying? Do you actually believe that? However, while this might was increased, Those resentful spirits enveloped the entire sky. There wasn't a giant net that could capture them all, and upon seeing how powerful this giant god was, they all fled, flapping their tails as they swam away, like giant human-faced tadpoles. Xie Lian cried, "Chase them!" Yet unexpectedly, it didn't chase a few steps before the giant stone statue slumped over without warning and fell to the side. Enough spiritual power was clearly taken just now, and Xie Lian was in excellent form, so there was no reason for this to happen. Just as they were about to fall over, Xie Lian looked down, and only then did he notice that on the leg of the divine statue, there was actually a giant hole. Shattered rocks rolled down from the wound. The figure of a white-clad man came fluttering down from it and landed languidly, vanishing immediately afterwards, truly elusive, like a ghost, leaving no trace. It was the white no-face. He had actually broke the leg of the divine statue with his bare hands. The giant stone statue came falling down in giant rumbles. Fortunately, everyone riding the statue was no one common, and they reacted extremely fast, leaping off and landing safely. Xie Lian and Hua Cheng leapt up from the chest of the divine statue, and Xie Lian tried commanding it to stand, but it struggled greatly. The divine statue sprawled on the ground, slowly writhed, looking rather miserable. Within the sword array, Muqing questioned, "How is it? Can it still stand? Did the powers run out again?" Shan Yuzhen said, "Do you need to borrow more?" "No, this isn't a question of spiritual powers," Pei Ming said. "Qi Ying, there's no need to remember any of that. Forget it completely!" "It's probably significantly injured," Xie Lian said. "It won't be able to move again." While rocks felt no pain, if they still forced it to stand and continue to fight, the injured leg would probably fall off completely. This wouldn't just be a matter of striking powers to being greatly cut down. This was, after all, Hua Cheng's most heartfelt masterpiece. And also Xie Lian's favorite divine statue. It was really going to be destroyed like that, but he couldn't help feeling hurt over it. Seeing the enemy collapse, the resentful spirits in the air danced wildly with mad joy and darted over. Were they just going to watch with open eyes while these creatures escaped to the outside? He glanced to the side, and Hua Cheng's expression was one of dark anger. It was anger towards White No-Face, and after humming a moment, he spoke up, "Gege." Just then, from within the dense and black clouds, a ray of bright white light came peeking through, as if somewhere above the clouds something had lit it. Soon after, a second ray, a third, and a fourth. Countless shining white lights came piercing down and penetrating through the gloomy clouds and stabbing through the resentful spirits. The white light, this white spiritual light, that it was so strong it could blind, was no stranger to all the heavenly officials present. After all, the entire heavenly court was always endlessly enveloped and shone upon this spiritual light. Jun Wu had come! Oh my god! Ah! Fuck! I'm gonna need a moment, y'all. I'm sorry. I thought I had it out of my system. I went and danced around this room for a little hot second, and I thought I had it out of my system, but I don't. I felt like I just ran a marathon. I felt like this was the best way to start this volume. I'm amazed. I'm floored. I'm shaken. I am as shaken as the mountain of Tonglu, because if you told me this was how we're going to start out volume 7, I thought we were going to just casually get into this. I thought MXTX was going to be like, okay, you just had a lot of rough time. You had a hard time. A lot of rough chapters there. We're just going to ease you back into the present. No! No! And I was like, oh, maybe at some point Jun Wu might show up with Hua Cheng there. And maybe at some point they'll all meet back up. At some point, by volume 8. No, we're doing this now? What? I mean, okay. We've got lots of things that I feel are on the cusp of being answered. And I feel, after reading this chapter set, now that Jun Wu has shown back up, I feel like a lot of Volume 7 may be going through and explaining this stuff and tying it all back into defeating Bai WuXiang. Oh my god. Oh. I have this idea, right? And so look, I am sure that a lot of people are going to try to jump the gun and be like, oh yeah, we found out that Bai Wuxiang is the prince yet. We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. So let's be clear about that. It has made Bai Wuxiang upset, Xie Lian saying that he's the crown prince of Wuyang. And Xie Lian believes he's figured it all out. He's like, yes, you're the crown prince, right? This all would make sense, right? With all the theorizing we've been doing these last volumes. But it has not been confirmed. So I don't want anybody being like, oh yeah, Bai Wuxiang's the prince. It's not been confirmed yet. I want to wait. I feel like the next set of chapters is going to give us answers because Junwu's showing up and Bai Wuxiang is there. So I feel like we're about to find some answers. We're on the very cusp, but just be patient with me and wait a week. Because we've got, like, Bai Wuxiang's identity. I do think it's interesting that he talks about Feng Xin, the sword. So Feng Xin is the sword. We're going to bring it up here. And or Feng Xin, rather. Feng Xin is the sword that was originally Zhuzhen. So it went from being like was it like a woman's heart or something, to being an executed heart, which I think is very important because of why we're going to tie Bai Wuxiang into this as a villain and tie where he's at as a character into all of this, right? And I'm going to have to play with Huckleberry because he had to deal with me screaming a lot and falling out of my chair because I was just like, this is absolutely freaking amazing. But so there is this idea that, yes, it is very possible that Bai Wuxiang is the Prince of Wuyang. That would all make sense. We don't know the exact ties to it. We don't know that. The big question in all of this is the Goshi and the mountain spirits, because I had a lot of theories about them going in when the chapter started before we realized it was the giant divine statue that Hua Cheng was talking about is what saves them. But the big question for me right now is their loyalties and what to do with them. Because now it all seems like, yeah, if Bai Wuxiang was the Prince of Wuyang, if he was, and all of this went down, which I'm feeling that this volume we're going to find out backstory, yay rah, then I feel as if we're going to find out about the Goshi, like what's with their loyalties, what was with them. I feel like the Goshi is going to show up because the three mountain spirits are here. The mountain spirits, they're there. They're the three of the four. The three mountain spirits that were the Goshi are there. They're trying to it feels like they're doing Bai Wuxiang's bidding in keeping Wuyang and Mount Tonglu, intact there and keeping outsiders out and people inside, whatever. But the Goshi is nowhere to be seen, and the Goshi being the fourth. So I feel like they're going to show up very soon and be kind of our exposition deus machina, right? I feel like Bai Wuxiang doesn't want to talk about it, right? That Xie Lian struck a nerve. When Xie Lian called him Your Highness and struck a nerve, I was like, ooh. So Bai Wuxiang does not want to talk about it. He just wants to get rid of them now. He's like, well, fine, you don't want to be my bestie? Then, you don't want to be my bestie? Fine, then I'll just burn down the school. It's very much like Mean Girls. Bai Wuxiang is Regina George. It's just like, fine, you don't want to become my best friend, Xie Lian? Then I'll just destroy everything, is what it seems like. And so Xie Lian definitely struck a nerve, and we're going to talk about it in a minute because I feel like that's going to be the central focus point of this volume. I'm just amazed it's all happening now because I'm like, we still have 400 pages of this volume and however many pages of volume 8 left to go. And that feels like we have so much story left, but it seems like this is the climax. So I'm like, what are we going to do afterwards? Is it all just going to be meandering along the way and happy times for the rest of the volumes? I have theories, but I'm going to wait till we get to the end of the chapter set to talk about them. But definitely the Goshi feels like they're going to be the exposition deus ex machina that's going to come in a chapter set or two and be like, hey, I know Bai Wuxiang doesn't want to talk about the past, but I'm here. I want to talk about it. And I feel like the Goshi is going to explain the ties between Wuyang and Shanla and explain the ties between that. I feel like that's going to be a thing. So I'm not erasing anything on here yet because I feel like in a few chapter sets we'll be able to take that chunk out, take that chunk out. I feel like we're going to have lots of things to get rid of in this volume, but I'm not there yet. So I'm going to hang on to these. leave him up there. As far as Mooching and Function's conversation, I feel like it's going to come back up by the end of the story. Probably not anytime soon. Hua Cheng, we haven't gotten to the origins of Eming yet, but I feel like we're going to. So we'll talk about it in this volume, I'm sure. I feel like we still don't know about the puppet that sent for Banyu. I feel like we're going to find that out by the end. The Third Ascension and the 500 years. I feel like we might touch back on that after this battle's over. I don't know. We'll see. My thing is, and we still have a lot of things that are left unsaid, so that still needs to be resolved by the end of the story. Like, the Windmaster and Heshan, wherever the hell they've been the last 3 volumes, we'll hopefully find that out by the end of this. My biggest concern is, I think Ling Wen and Bai Jing are going to be like a Deus Ex Machina in this, because they're not around. We don't know where Ling Wen and Bai Jing is. Who knows where they are? So I feel like there's a very strong chance that they could come in. Like, I feel like Bai Wuxiang may get the upper advantage, or like get in a point where they threaten Xie Lian. Maybe not have an advantage over Junwu and the others, but I feel like Bai Wuxiang will get into a point where they're like threatening Xie Lian, and Hua Cheng's like, what the fudge? And then like a Deus Ex Machina, Ling Wen and Bai Jing are going to come in and like distract Bai Wuxiang for a hot second and allow Hua Cheng to snip in and save Xie Lian, or whatever the case may be. Which would be kind of cool, because Ling Wen and Bai Jing are kind of like this representation of love and regret and obsession, which kind of ties in a sort of way to Hua Cheng and Xie Lian, so that'd be kind of a cool parallel there. We'll see. I feel like we're going to find out about the Fetus Spirit origin by the time all this is said and done. Yes. And then all the I feel like in the next 2 or 3 chapter sets, all the Wuyong stuff is going to get explained. I feel like volume 7 now is going to be a Wuyong. We've connected Bai Wuxiang to Xie Lian. We've connected it to Xie Lian's past and all of his tragedy. I feel like now we need to finally get some answers about Bai Wuxiang, about Wuyong, and maybe that's what volume 7 is going to be. And even though we start out this volume seemingly at the climax of the story, it is not above MXTX to be in a climax and be like, okay, I know we're at the climax of the story, but yeah, let's go back and explain some things. And we're like, what? So I very much would not be surprised if MXTX is like, yeah, I know we're at the climax of the story at the beginning of this volume, but we're not going to resolve it and actually reach the climax until the end of the volume. And sandwiched in between is going to be all this Wuyong stuff that we need to talk about, because we've been building it up for the last 6 volumes. And it's like, okay, good. I'm just so happy we're getting answers, and we're so close. We're so close. But we don't know for sure. There is like a 95% chance that Bai Wuxiang is the Prince of Wuyong. 95% chance. But there's just enough mystery left that I want to wait before we confirm it until we get to the rest of these chapters. And I want to hear it straight from the white no-face's mouth, right? But yeah, there's so much with these chapters. And it just felt like the entire chapter set was a mountain rumbling. It felt like an avalanche of text that I felt like I was yelling the whole time. I felt like I was getting into it the whole time. My brain started hurting. I was like, this is so much. My head started to hurt, but I was like, I'm not stopping. And then it just kept escalating. And I'm like, yes, we're going to talk about it, but Modao Zushi, I love you so much. But this story, this story, MXTX rewards us. We've had to deal with, so many chapters of pain the last 2 or 3 months. And to start us out with this volume at the level that it is has been like, I felt like I just took a big breath of mountain air and it just flooded my lungs, and like my crops were watered, my skin was moisturized, my spiritual powers were renewed. It was amazing. This chapter set was absolutely amazing. So yes, so I liked it the whole time that Xie Lian's like, so Long Ying was the first crown prince of Yong'an, correct? And they're like, yeah, he was the crown prince you knocked out and ditched in the palace of Yong'an and set fire to after you chopped his, corpse to 1,000,000 pieces. So, and they asked why the human face disease didn't affect anyone else, and that's because they basically just tried to suffocate. So they're like, so Long Ying was the first crown prince of Yong'an. He contracted the human face disease, and that little crown prince was the only one Xie Lian could think who might be a possibility. They're like, yeah, he's the one you knocked out and ditched and set fire to after butchering the corpses. Oh, so the crown prince was Long Ying's only nephew. So it was probably then when the remains infected him. So why didn't it affect anybody else? And they're like, because the people of Yong'an discovered he got infected. And so they gave the order to suffocate him, but he struggled and fought back and then fled. And so one of his other nephews was established as crown prince, and that was Lan Chuanchu's ancestor. So yeah, that what's so interesting is the fact that yeah, you have Long Ying, who Bai Wuxiang ended up inhabiting, like the kid Long Ying, who he ended up inhabiting and taking over, who had the disfigured face and everything and was a ghost. And then you have Long Ying, the adult version that Bai Wuxiang tricked because he'd lost his wife and kid. And in both cases, it was because they both had been suffering and Bai Wuxiang offered them relief from that. That's so messed up and twisted, right? That's so messed up. So messed up. And what's interesting is that at that point where Bai Wuxiang is like, well, I just wanted to keep him from suffering in this world any longer. And it's almost like Xie Lian realizes just how similar him and Bai Wuxiang are in a way, where he's like, wow, yeah, we both had the same thoughts about existence. Interesting. So if you really have said you're like me to such an extent, you were the crown prince of Wuxiang, weren't you? And this has all like been mirroring, history has been repeating itself, right? And that gets Bai Wuxiang to be kind of flustered. But yeah, the whole Long Ying thing is just insane. Like just the idea of how it all worked out and the parallels and the way that it all trajected and narratively it all fits. It's crazy. And that's when seeing Bai Wuxiang is being flustered is so fascinating. And I love that Xie Lian finally connects the dots and realizes, no, him hearing the people of Wuxiang is not meaning that Xie Lian is the prince of Wuxiang. It means that part of the memories from someone who was imprinted upon him. Now, the question is it the Goshi or is it White No Face? Because at this point, I mean, like I said, 95% chance that Bai Wuxiang is probably the Prince of Wuxiang, right? Probably. Now that brings to light, if he is the Prince of Wuxiang, then what is the Goshi? Then who is the Goshi? So there's three ways we can look at this. At this point, I think there are three options. I think that the least likely option is that the Goshi is the Prince of Wuxiang. So here's my three thoughts. These are my three thoughts. There are three options here that we have. Either the Goshi is the prince, and maybe Bai Wuxiang was like kind of a Hua Cheng-like figure to them, or their Goshi. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think the Goshi is the prince. No. I think that it's either one of two things. Either Bai Wuxiang, in both cases, is the prince of Wuxiang. And we've talked in previous chapter sets about how that all could have gone down, the history of how it mimics Shanla, about how he could have been, deceived by the people, abandoned by the people, was, maybe tortured and killed by the people once he tried to save them. We're going to find out in this volume, I'm sure, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. But I think the Goshi, then, is either one of two things. The Goshi was either the Goshi of Wuxiang at the time, along with the other four Goshi that are now the mountain spirits, right? And they're all just, they were following Bai Wuxiang, and that's why, again, we still don't know if they were talking about Xie Lian or Bai Wuxiang when they said that the crown prince is a lost hope. It could go either way. We don't know yet. We're going to hopefully find out this volume. Or the Goshi was a Goshi to Bai Wuxiang back then, but maybe he's kind of like a Hua Cheng or lover figure. And that's why the Goshi doesn't become a mountain spirit, because he was like a lover. Bai Wuxiang talks very badly about him and kind of puts him down. So I'm like, did they have a breakup? Did the Goshi abandon him? Did he do the opposite of Hua Cheng and didn't stay by his side? And Bai Wuxiang just had such a horrible thing? Because I guess I'll go ahead and talk about it. And I'll say it again at the end of the chapter set. I think that the entire point of this story right now is that Bai Wuxiang has isolated himself to be alone, right? He tried to get Xie Lian to become his partner. And that did not work because of Hua Cheng, right? So I feel like by the end of the story, it's going to be Bai WuXiang versus Xie Lian, Hua Cheng, Junwu, and everyone else. Even the Goshi and the mountain spirits. Because it could very well be that the mountain spirits, they're trying to destroy the statue of the divine statue, which we'll talk about, but they're not actively, I don't feel like they're trying to kill Xie Lian necessarily, and maybe they are, but they're trying to destroy the statue, but they're enabling Xie Lian to fight back against the human face disease cloud of WuXiang spirits that are trying to invade the rest of the world, which we'll talk about. It's just storytelling. I love it. It's so great. But I feel like by the end of this story, it's going to be Bai WuXiang by himself versus everyone else. And Xie Lian is going to have this realization that no matter what has happened to him, what he's gone through, everyone is still there for him. Like Junwu is there for him. Fengshen and Wuqing are there for him. Pei Ming and the others are there for him. And especially Hua Cheng is there for him. So it's going to be Xie Lian realizing these people that love him and care about him and form this network. And back in volume 6, he spent so much time, Bai WuXiang was trying to get Xie Lian to isolate himself like he had done and become like him, alone and bitter and full of hatred. And Xie Lian, because of Hua Cheng, realized that just one person in my life is enough. If I have just one person I can rely on in my life, that's enough. And Bai WuXiang had been all alone and didn't have that. So I feel like part of the story is going to be getting Bai WuXiang by himself, and then Xie Lian surrounded by all these people that lend him their energy and their love, and him being like, no, I'm not alone. I have all these people with me. I'm not a lonely god on a mountain. I'm just a scrap collector who has people that love him in his life. And I'm going to freaking flip out if that's what ends up happening. But yes, that's my theory. That's my headcanon. We're going to expand upon it. But yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. And then, so yeah, now, honestly, in the moment that Xie Lian sees the face, I do think he's like, the name you gave the sword is Fengshen, the black sword. And he's like, you don't know how to give names. The original name of the sword was Zushin, or executed heart. So I'm very curious. I want to know now about Zushin. And we're going to add it to it. Zushin, which is Fengshen, and see its origins. It seems like it was originally Bai WuXiang. So does that mean that Fengshen was the sword that pierced Xie Lian, the executed heart? I'm like, that he got that sword back when he was the Goshi of Yongin. So has he always had that sword? It does look different than the sword that pierced him on the altar. So I'm curious about that. We're going to go back to Zushin and see if we get any more details. The fact that he mentioned that it has a different name and that's all he says about it before Xie Lian sees the face of the divine statue, I feel like we're going to go back to that. We're going to cross back over that point and talk back about it again. But I thought that the divine statue, I thought originally it was the mountain spirits that were coming in to help Xie Lian. And I thought we were going to find out. I thought the Goshi was going to show back up. I thought the mountain spirits were going to come in and get Xie Lian out of there. And then the Goshi was going to give us some exposition ex machina. Has not happened yet. Instead, it was the divine statue. The biggest and best statue Hua Cheng had ever made was inside the kiln. I think that says so much, because while Hua Cheng was inside the kiln killing all of these spirits, he somehow found time to on the side sculpt this life-sized version of Xie Lian. Oh my god, like it's the ultimate form of praise. It's the ultimate sign of devotion. It is Hua Cheng's magnum opus, this big-ass divine statue that is towering above. And I've already put the book back on the shelf for today, but the thumbnail is the picture of them standing atop the giant Xie Lian statue holding each other. And my mind, at that point where he's like, break out, that Xie Lian, I like Xie Lian goes back and grabs the bamboo hat. He has to go back and grab his hat. At this point, it's like one piece. It's like Luffy with his straw hat, Xie Lian in his bamboo hat. He's like, no, it's a representation of how I'm not going to go back to being that person Bai WuXiang wanted me to be. I'm never going back to that. There's always at least one person that will show me kindness. And this bamboo hat is proof of that. It's like, yes. And I'm sorry, but Xie Lian getting to the top of the mountain, to this divine statue, and calling it, the first thing he says in the snow flying by and the mountain air, the first thing he says is San Long's name. And Hua Cheng being like, I was going crazy. Like his hair all undone and mussed, and him being like, I was trying to find you. At this point, this whole chapter said, and Xie Lian just acknowledging that he loves Hua Cheng, and the whole kissing scene. Oh my God, we'll talk about the kissing scene. But him just acknowledging that he loves Hua Cheng, and that it's just that. He's like, no, I love you. And I can't wait for him to say it. I want him to say it, but it's no time right now. We've got to get through all this mess. But him just like cupping his hand in his face and holding him, I'm like, oh my God. It's so amazing. And then Hua Cheng like tries to get on himself. He's like, you had to break out on your own. He's like, I'm so stupid. And Xie Lian's like, no, it's okay. I didn't break through on my own. And him acknowledging, saying like, it was us together. Like, you built this beautiful statue. And I love that Xie Lian says it's his favorite divine statue. Hua Cheng's masterpiece. Where he's like, no, you made this statue showing your love to me. And I was able to put the spiritual power that you gave me into the statue. We did it together. And I'm like, yes. So the question is Bai WuXiang a supreme now? Because was he the last ghost standing? Or is because Hua Cheng and Xie Lian have messed up the ritual, because they've messed it up, because of that, is it like null and void? Did the whole process it's like, were you baking a cake and then suddenly the oven blew up, so your cake didn't end up getting finished? Is that what's happened? I do think now, if we find out that Bai WuXiang became a supreme, the whole idea of Mount Tonglu getting created makes sense, because Bai WuXiang is like, I became a ghost and became the supreme because of my trauma and my pain and despair. He's like, so I wanted to create other supreme ghosts to add chaos and despair and sorrow into the world. And so Heshan's a great example of that. Heshan is exactly what Bai WuXiang would have wanted. Someone that was driven by despair and pain to become this supreme being. He just was so despondent after that. He was like, I'm just going to go off and do my own thing, whatever. And just living in sorrow until he met the Windmaster. And then you have Heshan, or you have Hua Cheng, who, yes, went through pain and despair like what Bai WuXiang wanted, but he was driven by a love for someone else, which Bai WuXiang doesn't seem to understand. And so, oh my God. So, chapter 200 and 201. Oh my God. So these chapters were just insane. Like, just the idea of Xie Lian and Hua Cheng like getting out of the mountain, and them on top of the divine statue, slowly working their way up like little ants to get to. I like that you have the crown on top of the head. I'm like, just giving me all the Howl Moving Castle vibes. I love it. And then just the idea of the mountain erupting, and there's lava and just the pillar of smoke. And yes, so it makes sense now that Bai WuXiang was wanting Xie Lian to basically mimic the same thing he did. Bai WuXiang has wanted to be by himself and wants the world to suffer. So a question though is, why didn't he unleash the human face disease before? So is that where the Goshi comes in? Because it seems like Bai WuXiang is now going to eliminate the human face disease and impart it on the rest of the world. And he was able to break the barrier on Mount Tonglu. So why didn't he do that before? What was up with that? So my theory is that the Goshi is the one that put up the barrier in the first place. Somehow, my theory is that, okay, the Goshi somehow put up the barriers on Mount Tonglu, and him and the other fellow Goshi became the mountain spirits to keep people out and to keep people in Mount Tonglu. They're the one that created this barrier and array, and they basically sacrificed themselves to say, okay, we don't want the human face disease getting out of Mount Tonglu again and causing this problem. So we are going to stay here, sacrifice ourselves, potentially save the rest of the world from having the human face disease outbreak. But now, and that would make sense because it could have been around the time that when Bai WuXiang became a supreme from Mount Tonglu, that's around the time that he found Xie Lian and all this went down. And then after he fought Junwu and died supposedly, the Goshi and the mountain spirits were like, okay, let's do this at Mount Tonglu. Let's make this barrier, and that way nothing can happen so that we don't get another human face disease outbreak. Because we'll keep the resentful spirits of Wuyang trapped here in Mount Tonglu. And we'll just let that happen. And we'll just keep it like that for as long as we can. I'm guessing that's what's happening, but I know we're going to find out more as this goes on. But, I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense, was that they were able to make this barrier and keep this resentful spirits of Wuyang inside over all these years, because Bai WuXiang was slowly having to build himself back up to get to the point where he could go to Mount Tonglu again. But it's like you have the puzzle in front of you and you're missing like 2 or 3 key pieces to tie it all together. And I think that's what this volume is going to do, is get it to where we can tie everything together. I'm like, okay, good. I'm ready for answers, MXTX. We've had to suffer enough. Now give it to us in this volume, please. But I love that the moment that White No Face gets on the statue at first, Hua Cheng's like, this divine statue is not for you to taint. Like, get off. And Xie Lian's like, no. He's like, so long. The lava. And so they run away. I love it. And then just as the statue's about to fall the first time, Xie Lian gets kissed by Hua Cheng and realizes he ran out of spiritual power. It had to help him replenish itself. So, it's so freaking good, right? And so they keep on running. I love that the ghosts down below, the ghosts are used to Mount Tonglu erupting. They're used to the resentful spirits. Like that human face disease cloud, not a big thing. This giant white divine statue barreling towards them, that's something different. And so, yeah, I love that we just get Pei Ming and everybody back together. God, it felt so refreshing. God, it felt so refreshing. I never thought I would be so happy to be back in the present and hear I never thought I'd be so happy to hear Pei Ming's voice. And Pei Ming in this chapter set was the best. The best! We'll talk about it for so many reasons. But I was so happy. Like, even Function and Muqing, who after all those chapters of being like, oh my God, y'all, back then, I'm so glad to see them now. I'm like, yes. But you could just tell that Hua Cheng, when Xie Lian's like, oh yeah, the others, can we go back and get them? And Hua Cheng's like, uh-huh. Although, I will say, Hua Cheng did not oppose them going back and finding them nearly as much this time around. Because I think, one, Hua Cheng was like, yes, let's see Muqing and Function and the others witness this beautiful divine statue that I've made of you, Gege. Let's go. And also, Hua Cheng knows now that Xie Lian mutually likes him back. And he's like, okay, like, let's show them our love. Let's do it. Love wins. Let's just do it. Let's shout to the top of the mountains, or in this case, a divine statue. Let's do this. And Xie Lian's like, okay. And he's like, mm-hmm. So he's a lot more open to the idea of getting these plebeians involved now, right? Right? So they go, and I love the reaction. I love that we have the 3 mountains, the old age, sickness, and death, like coming to get them. And then Xie Lian is like, yeah, we are pretty conspicuous. And I love that he tells the mountains, do not block my way. And when he pulls out the sword, this is before they get the others, when he pulls out the sword, he's like, oh, there's no blade, which feels like it is like a 2-pronged thing. One, Hua Cheng, in making the statue, probably did not anticipate it coming to life to help in this situation. So of course, when you draw, it's like when you draw on a piece of paper, the sword in the sheath, there's not actually a sword you draw inside of it. It's just the hilt, right? Or in this case, the sleeve was blocking it, so there was nothing else but the hilt. But also, I wondered if Hua Cheng didn't draw the blade because of the idea that Xie Lian in the past has tried to kill himself with Ruyi. So Hua Cheng did not want to draw the idea of the deity that he worships having something that was a weapon in his hand that he could hurt himself with. And plus, after witnessing like the sword stabbing him 100 times, Hua Cheng probably didn't want to draw Xie Lian holding a sword. Makes sense, right? Makes sense. But in multiple ways. But yeah. And I love that Hua Cheng is like, it's my miscalculation. It's not exquisite enough. Next time I'm going to carve out every detail. Like, he's so serious. And Xie Lian's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Like, Hua Cheng's just like, it's not perfect enough, Gege. I'll make it better next time. And Xie Lian's like, it's fine. God, I love them. I love them to pieces. It's just, I love them so much. And so instead they start running away. And I like that Pei Ming is like, yeah, where are you guys? And Xie Lian's like, I'm up here. I love that we don't get to see Pei Su or Banyu or Ying. Yeah, Yin Yu is probably just like, Yin Yu was probably like, yeah, Hua Cheng talked about this statue for a while. I've known about it for ages. I love that. I love that we don't get Guzi or Pei Su or Banyu's reactions. I love the idea that Feng Xin and Muqing are just like, what the F is this? What is happening? Whoa! Like, they're just both so flabbergasted. And I like that Pei Ming's like, oh yeah. Pei Ming's like, showed up in style, huh? Yeah, Pei Ming is losing his mind with like, Pei Ming is like, he's already sent out the postcards. He's already got the fan club meeting date down. And he was just like, man, I hope this works out. And now that this chapter said, Pei Ming's like, oh, it's all coming together. Pei Ming becomes Krong from Immersion and Groove. It's all coming together. And meanwhile, Feng Xin and Muqing are like losing their ever-loving mind. And you just know, like, Feng Xin's just like throwing the F-bomb every other direction. And Xie Lian's like, yeah. And Hua Cheng is like, when it says Hua Cheng raised his brows like he was having to hold back a laugh, he was like, yes. Yes, you all have to see this. And the fact that it's like Hua Cheng has such big dick energy in this moment because he's like, oh yes, Junwoo had the biggest statue in the world. Well, this one's like twice as big as his. So what now, bitches? And it's like, I could not fangirl more about all of this. I freaking love it. They're so shocked. They're so shocked. It's so great. And Feng Xin is like, well, who carved this? Why have I not seen this? Why haven't I even heard of it before? And Hua Cheng's like, there's many things you haven't heard of in this world. And of course, Muqing is just like, what is this? What is spiritual powers? What's happening? Muqing is like such a wet blanket that's just been hung out to dry. It's great. And then Pei Ming is like, well, I mean, yeah, spiritual energy, that's an easy thing to get. I'm not surprised by this. I never thought I would live to see the day where I would actively be so supportive of Pei Ming, but here we are. Freaking love him in this chapter set. I love him. And so, yeah, I love that all of the other ghosts try to get them to take them on board the statue, and Hua Cheng's like, get down, you're not worthy. He's like, I wouldn't even save these plebeians if my boyfriend didn't really have, like, some kind of attachment to them. Yeah, Hua Cheng is like, you tried to hurt my Gege. No, you don't get to come with us. Wonderful. And then, yeah, the black clouds. I like that they described them as human-faced tadpoles. So gross. Like, they're just trying to, like, skirt their way outside into the outside world. Yeah, I do love in all of this that, as they say, that the barrier's been broken by White No Face. They're trying to fly out. I like the idea that we've built up to this threat. And it is a very high-stakes threat in this story. I mean, again, not to compare to Modao Zushi. I mean, I'm not going to spoil Modao Zushi, but I felt like the stakes of the climax of Modao Zushi are much more interpersonal stakes, and they're much more low-key stakes. I mean, granted, there's some stakes there. There are. But the stakes of this story are pretty big, because we've built up, one, how bad the human face disease is, how dangerous it is, how hard it is to stop. And so, of course, the idea that this giant wave of Wuyang spiritual resentful energy could infect the world and destroy it and cause massive chaos is a big threat. So it makes it all the more imperative that they stop Bai WuXiang, because now it's not just, you know, a city that could be infected, it's the world. So I love that MXTX has slowly raised the stakes throughout the story, but also along the way showed you how dire this one human face disease is and how dangerous it is, to let you know that this is not something to be like laughing about or taking lightly. It's a big deal. And that makes the stakes at this moment so much more palpable. So when you're like, oh yeah, we have mountain spirits and mountains versus a divine statue, and then Voltron happening. I've not watched Voltron, but I know kind of what it is. I think of Power Rangers, like with our power, or it's like Captain Planet, with our powers combined. We have Earth, which is Qi Ying, Fire, which is, I guess fire would be function, maybe. Water, which is mooching. And heart! Or wind, I guess. Would Pei Ming be wind? I don't know. And then heart, and they form the sword that Xie Lian's statue is going to use. It's great, right? Oh my god. The idea that the four martial gods become a sword together, which was foreshadowed by the sword that Pei Ming fought. So I like, again, MXTX puts in these little world building elements to get you used to the concept before throwing something absolutely bonkers your way. Like the human face disease was a concept, and then we amplify it for the climax. The idea of Pei Ming's former comrade becoming a sword that can fight him was a concept, and now we expand upon it to have the four of them working together become a sword. It's great! And then, if only there was a sword. I love Xie Lian's like, if only there was a sword that could save us. And Hua Cheng's like, well, I can help you there. And he's like, yes. And so I like the idea that we have four martial gods. We have Qi Ying, we have Pei Ming, we have Function, and we have Mu Qing that have all interacted with Xie Lian. And they're the four martial gods that have interacted with him, because the Wind Master's not a martial god, neither is the Rain Master. So I like the Rain Master's just kind of there on the ox the whole time, just like, because what else can she do right now, right? But I love that. And Pei Ming, I like that Pei Ming's instantly on board with it. Pei Ming's like, yeah, let's do this. Pei Ming's like, I see no problem with this. Pei Ming was like, you mean the four of us get to combine into like an orgy and a sword? Let's go. Pei Ming is not shameless. He's shameless. He does not care. Now, granted, they're not having an orgy. Let's spare Qi Ying from that. But it is just a funny concept that Pei Ming was just instantly okay with it. Like, let's go. And Function, we don't really get a reply from Function. He just seems kind of like, well, let's just do this, I guess. Mu Qing, of course, is the one to fight back. Mu Qing's like, I don't know. And Hua Cheng's like, I'm going to turn him into chopped liver if he doesn't agree. But then Yin Yu, I like Yin Yu hesitating, because Yin Yu likes Qi Ying and doesn't want to put Qi Ying in danger. And Yin Yu's like, okay. But not only that, Yin Yu knows that as soon as he releases Qi Ying, there's a possibility Qi Ying might just spring upon him, which he does. But it's just like, I like that Yin Yu's like, okay. And I love that he's holding Goozy the whole time. Yin Yu's just holding little Goozy. Stop, caretaker Yin Yu, my heart. I love that he picks up the Daruma doll that is Qi Rong, though. And Qi Rong's like, Could you imagine if they released Qi Rong and he's just like, I can't. Oh my God. This chapter is amazing. Chapter 202 is absolutely amazing. I'm glad I included it with this set of chapters. God, I'm so glad. I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely wonderful. So yes, I love that as soon as he releases him, as soon as it happens, he's just like, Xizhong! I like that Yin Yu tried to hide behind someone's back so that Qi Ying couldn't. I'm like, Yin Yu, just accept the fact that Qi Ying loves you. Accept it. Come on now. He loves you so much. And I love that Pei Ming's like, nope. Pei Ming is simultaneously everyone's biggest shipping support, but also like the only one that gets it. Like he gets, for someone that is like such a womanizer, he gets the unconditional love happening around him. And he's like, okay, look. He's like, Yin Yu, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to get Qi Ying to come over here with us. And you all can talk it out later and figure yourselves out. I'm like, I just need Pei Ming to be like a marriage counselor. Not for himself. He himself is a wreck. But for everybody else, right? Oh my God. He's like, your reunion can be after your work is done. And I love the phrasing, Chan Yijin was profoundly confused. That describes Chan Yijin this entire chapter set. Profoundly confused. Like, what's happening? But he hears that they have a battle, so of course it's in Qi Ying's personality to be like, okay, I'll go fight first, and then I'll come back to Xizhong. And it's like, love it. So yeah, so then they all get together, and I like that they're in the order of Pei Ming, Function, which that lineup matches. Also, that lineup's hilarious because you have Pei Ming, who's like dripping in women, and then Function, who's like, ew, no, only one. Then you have Chan Yijin, who's like a sim with like a confused mark the entire time, and Mu Qing, who is the least. It goes in order of most enthusiastic about this plan to least enthusiastic, because you have Pei Ming, who is like all aboard the train, Function, who's like, I guess we've got to do this, so sure. Chan Yijin, who's like, I don't know what's going on, but there's a battle, so I'm a fight. Okay. And Wuxing, who's like, I don't agree with any of this, but because I'm in the minority, I guess I'm not going to speak up. So it's almost like, again, we've talked about how passive-aggressive Wuxing is and non-confrontational, and he'll do anything to avoid the conflict. So it's very appropriate for his character, who, even though he doesn't agree with it, he's not going to speak up because he's not in the majority, or he doesn't have a position of power in this moment. I'm like, yes. It's kind of like taking his, you know, what he was using against Xie Lian and stuff on the mountain. It's kind of like karma coming back on him, right? And Hua Cheng, I like that Hua Cheng is like, wait a minute. He's like, should we switch the two so that the sword, he's like, because if Chan Yijin's powers aren't stable, it could cause the sword to snap. And Xie Lian's like, no, I know that's a threat, but Function and Wuxing, if they're next to each other, might try to kill each other during the battle, and that will literally be the same as snapping the sword in half. And I love that Hua Cheng is like, please have them do this. That'd be great. Hua Cheng holds a grudge, and we still don't know what that conversation is. So Hua Cheng is like, no, let's have them kill each other, please. We better find out what that is. I'm sure we will, but we better find out what it is. Even if it's something simple and like something as simple as them doubting Xie Lian or something, I want to know by the end of it. So I'm hoping we find out. Maybe. But then they become this spiritual sword. It's the craziest of things. And they start fighting. But of course, because now you're using a spiritual sword, it's using more energy. And so Xie Lian's like, oh crap, I've run out of spiritual powers. So at this point, it's my favorite part of the whole chapter set. Favorite part of the whole chapter set. The idea of, again, I'm sorry to compare to Modao Zushi. The confession in Modao Zushi is amazing, and people's reactions are like, but here's the thing. I feel like in Modao Zushi, people knew all along. Like, it's been building up this whole time in Modao Zushi, and everybody's like, come on with it, let's go. And then it finally happens, and it's very rewarding and glorious. Here, we as the audience have known all along, and we've suspected Pei Ming has known all along, but the others have been kind of oblivious, and then the reactions of Xie Lian when he turns around, he glomps over, cups Hua Cheng's face. I love that he stands on his tiptoes. Xie Lian stands up on his tiptoes and like makes out with Hua Cheng. And I love Function and Wuxing are like, my favorite reactions though are Chan Yijin being like, Chan Yijin's like, I just picture him having a, you know, like when a little dog tilts its head, like my corgis, they'll be like, when something happens. I just picture Chan Yijin being like, what's happening? And meanwhile, Yin Yu's in the back like, oh, thank God, finally. But Pei Ming's ho-ho. Pei Ming's ho-ho. It's like the best where he's like, yeah, like about damn time. I love that Pei Ming's like, what happened in that cave? What happened at Mount Tonglu? Oh my God. And then I love that Xie Lian's like, Xie Lian's like, I'm shameless. I'm already like kissing him. Might as well go for the full effect. And him just like wrapping his arms around Hua Cheng's neck and like kissing him deeper. And Hua Cheng ain't gonna turn this away. And then like, oh my God, the sword being like just going crazy. And Function is like, what is happening? And Wuxing is like, and Xie Lian's like, at first, Xie Lian's like, oh, I'm just borrowing spiritual powers. I'm being very proper in this moment. And Wuxing's like, bullshit you are. All you had to do is like slap hands. Why are you kissing him? And then Xie Lian saying, I've been seen through. It's not actually borrowing any spiritual powers. That confession where Xie Lian's like, he finally says it out loud, laughing. Like, no, I'm not actually doing this to borrow spiritual powers. I'm kissing Hua Cheng because I want to. Because I'm attracted to him. And Hua Cheng like laughing out loud. I want to hear it so badly. I want to hear Hua Cheng's voice actor act laughing out loud. And him like cupping his face back and giving him a little forehead kiss. And saying, don't be nervous, Gege. It's mutual, damn it. Like rainbows given rainbows. The it's mutual comes out of the ground. Hua Cheng getting the realization that Xie Lian loves him. I'm like, you didn't have to. The new I love you is, I'm not actually borrowing spiritual powers. My dogs don't understand the fangirling that is existing in my heart right now. They just don't. And I'm just like, oh my God. And Hua Cheng being like, don't be nervous about it. Like, it's fine. We're together now. Yep. And then I like that Xie Lian like ignores Function and Wuxing having a friend freak out, like ignoring that. And Chan Yishan, the best part though, immediately after is Chan Yishan's like, oh, so by kissing, you borrow spiritual powers and you become really strong. And I like Pei Ming's like, whoa there. Again, Pei Ming is like, because Wuxing starts to argue and then he's like, Wuxing realizes Chan Yishan's like neurodivergency and is like, I'm not going to waste my time. Yes, borrowing spiritual powers is it. But Pei Ming is like, now, you can't borrow so casually. Do you understand, Qi Ying? Pei Ming knows exactly what's going to happen. He has seen Qi Ying going after Yin Yu, and Pei Ming's looked over at Yin Yu like, when this is all over, I am sorry, but Qi Ying is going to try to, like, make out with you. So I hope you're ready for that. And Yin Yu's just over in the corner like... My hands hurt from clapping so much. I was just like, I'm not gonna lie, at the end of this chapter set, I was numb. My hands were shaking. I was like so elated. My heart was pounding, not just from the coffee, but just from the sheer elation of how amazing this chapter set was. Oh my God. And then, yeah. And then they go after them. And I like the whole time that Chan Yishan is like, oh, do you need to make out with him again? Are your spiritual powers going? And I like the Pei Ming's like, no, the question isn't of spiritual powers. Qi Ying, there's no need to remember any of that. Forget it completely. Because Pei Ming's like, don't start making out with people thinking you're going to get power. Oh my God. I love the concept of Pei Ming as like a caretaker for Qi Ying and how much their characters have grown. Like back during the stuff with the Earth Master and the Wind Master, well, Heshan and the Wind Master, back then, you know, Pei Ming was getting thrown around by Qi Ying, and we were just like, isn't that funny? And now Pei Ming is like guiding Chan Yishan and like having the talk with him and like trying to guide him towards understanding like the do's and don'ts of consent. I was like, yeah, you're going to tell some consent with Qi Ying because he doesn't understand. And it's like, oh my God, this chapter said I am. So yeah, of course, Bai WuXiang catches up. And of course, Bai WuXiang like blows a hole in the knee of Xie Lian's divine statue to knock it to the ground. And I just love that when it collapses, I just love the idea of Hua Cheng looking over at White No Face being like, Gege, like this, because he warned Bai WuXiang, he's like, don't you touch the statue. Like he warned Wuxing not to touch the statues and was like going to rip his arm off. So the idea of Bai WuXiang, the one creature that Hua Cheng has wanted to like keep away from Xie Lian this whole time, that he's like this monster, like he touched my masterpiece, my divine statue. And I love that Xie Lian, he says this was after all Hua Cheng's most heartfelt masterpiece and Xie Lian's favorite divine statue. If it was going to be destroyed, he couldn't help but feel hurt over it. Yep. And then that's when I love, from the thick black clouds of the human face disease come these white lights of Junwoo shining down. So the gang's all here. Now. The gang is all here. Junwoo is supposedly coming up from the clouds to show up with Hua Cheng and Xie Lian and the others. It's all going down. Like, like everything... Bai WuXiang is here. The mountain spirits are here. The only one missing from this equation is the Goshi, and I think they're going to show up very soon. Because we've got to have some answers. We need to know about what's going on with Wu Yang. We need Bai WuXiang explained. Where are Bai WuXiang's ashes? How do we destroy those? It would be really funny if the Goshi had Bai WuXiang's ashes and that they destroyed them. But I don't know. I'm like, oh my God. And then my thing is I'm gonna be waiting for like I'm just waiting for like Chan Yishan to tell Junwoo. Junwoo's like, well, have you been using spiritual powers, Xie Lian, if you've been shackled by me 2 times? And Chan Yishan's like, he's been making out with the Ghost King. And Junwoo going, that tracks. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for Junwoo to go, well, I feel like we've done all the Little Mermaid comparisons. Hey, you too. They're in in that part of the day where they're just going to play with each other. But I feel like it's like Little Mermaid, where at the very end Junwoo is gonna like look over to Pei Ming, and Pei Ming is like Sebastian the Crab, and he's like, Your Majesty, what do we do about these two? And Junwoo's like, well, there's just one thing left to say, how much I'm gonna miss him. And then like lets Xie Lian go off with Hua Cheng. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that now. My dogs. I think just the excitement they have sums up my feelings about this chapter set. I am elated. Hey, Huckleberry, come here. I am elated. I am excited. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait to read the next set. Because there's no Manhua chapter next week. We're going to wait. No Manhua chapter next week. I'm going to wait a week in between. So next week's chapters are going to be chapters 203 to 205. So 3 chapters next week, pages 45 to 74. Hopefully we get some answers. That'd be great. That'd be wonderful if we did. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm hopeful. So, y'all, this, after all the doom and gloom and suffering that we've had from volume 6, I'm hoping this volume is like a celebration, like answers of characters coming together, of everything building up to this final battle. I am hopeful for it, but I don't know, man. But I hope you all enjoyed my fangirling this chapter set. I'm so elated. And I can't wait to see what happens next. So, just in time for season 2 of the Donghua as well. So, yay! So, next week we'll go through part 65, chapters 203 to 205. But in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And oh my God, I will be back next week with more of Volume 7 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye!